What's up, Buttercup? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and I am a booktuber and self-published writer, and today's book review is The Light Fantastic by Terry Pratchett. I gave this book 3.5 stars, and this book starts right where the first book, The Color of Magic, left off, with Rincewind falling off the side of Discworld. Of course, he was okay and not squished to a pulp, but Two Flower and the luggage also go overboard, and with the help of a few friends, they have to save the world. My favorite characters were the ever lovely Death and the luggage. Funny how that works out because they're side characters and not the main character, Rincewind, and not even Two Flower, who's, I guess you could say, a sidekick, so kind of sort of a main character, but not really, of Rincewind. And though Two Flower and Rincewind are better fleshed out in this book, they're still just, to me personally, average characters and a bit too tropey, even though Terry Pratchett with Rincewind created an opposite effect with that character, because at this time, the norm of a fantasy main character was strong, badass wizards. And Rincewind is the complete opposite of that trope. Rincewind and Two Flower fall heavily into trope boxes, but I think The Light Fantastic does it better than the first book, because the first book were multiple short stories packed in together, and I'm not 100% sure that really worked. Well, I mean, I'm not the only one that thinks that way. A lot of people agree that the first book and even this book aren't the best books in the Discworld series. So I'm not even sharing a hot take at this point. I think having multiple short stories as your first book in a series is kind of a bold move, not gonna lie, because the flow is off, and I'm not the only one who says that, but I think The Light Fantastic is a better setup because the timeline is straightforward, and yeah, it's not a bunch of short stories packed into one book. The story arc and even a couple of character arcs makes sense compared to the first book. Honestly, I didn't particularly relate or care about the main characters for this book and the first book. Like I said, I absolutely adore Death, and the luggage is hilarious. Then again, at the very end of The Light Fantastic, I did feel some feels for Rincewind because of that ending and how things are wrapped up and what he did at the end of this novel. He was an average character regarding build-up and growth. I was finding the side characters to be cooler and more interesting, like I said, with Death and the luggage. I'm so glad Death has his own thing going on with other books in the series. And I don't regret reading the books in order because I got a proper introduction to Death, and I'm sure a bunch of other characters that will pop up throughout the many books in Discworld. And I love seeing the progression of Terry's writing and storytelling and involving sarcasm and satire in his books, because I know the books get better and better. I've been told that many times. No shame at all for that progression, because I think we would all hope that as the years go by, writers get better and better with how they tell their story and how they portray characters. I think that is good, not bad, because practice makes things better. Not perfect. You really can't perfect art because art is so subjective, but I really see so much potential in these two books, especially The Light Fantastic. I read up on Terry Pratchett's life, and he had a full-time job during his earlier books, so he's working 2 jobs. And really, he's working a full-time job, so at least 40 hours a week, if maybe not more hours per week, on top of writing whenever he can. And yeah, that can definitely be tiring. So not completely surprised that he's getting into the groove of things for these first 2 books in the Discworld series. You gotta do what you gotta do to pay those bills. I understand completely. I'm sure during this time, these books were a breath of fresh air because of those inverted tropes and having sarcasm sprinkled throughout his books. A lot of fantasy, well, I would say the majority of fantasy at this time, was very serious. And that's just not Terry Pratchett. So eventually his books went boom, and he didn't need a full-time job anymore. He quit that full-time job and worked as a full-time writer for the rest of his life. I'm sure he did like other things, but mainly focusing on writing books. And isn't that the dream? Ugh, jealous. There is a spark in the Discworld series that shines through. Humor, satire, sarcasm, and quick wit of Terry Pratchett's alive and well, even in the earlier books, and I love to see it. There are a lot of enjoyable and funny moments, like naming a really old warrior Cohen. Not Conan, Cohen. I get the joke, even though I'm not a fan of Conan the Barbarian, but I know things, and I like to have those little moments where I feel special. Even though I'm not a fan of Conan or other quick-witted, funny, kind of sort of inside jokes that you would miss if you're not immersed in the fantasy universe, or multiple fantasy universes, I should say. Whenever I saw the Cohen warrior pop up in the book, I chuckled. I'm not gonna lie. I know why he wrote that in. It's just funny. And that type of humor and wit explodes in the later books, as does the awesomeness of the Discworld lore overall. Really, these 2 books, especially The Light Fantastic, because it's streamlined and not multiple short stories in one book, we're really getting the foundation of Discworld as a whole. And therefore, I am excited to read all of the books in the Discworld series. I'm still going in order of publication, but knowing me, it's going to take quite some time to get through all, 42 books? 45? It's in the 40s. It's gonna take some time, I swear, because I'm up for the challenge. Of course I am. And I gotta give Terry Pratchett props. I know a lot of people already do, but I really like Discworld, and I want more people to read about it. I was very surprised that I only learned about Discworld in my late 20s. I don't know. I missed the train somehow, but I think these could really work well for people getting into fantasy. I know I would have loved them when I was younger. I love them now, but I think it would have been a great introduction or starter to fantasy, because there are a lot of epic fantasies that are freaking huge chunky monkeys, and that in itself is intimidating for younger readers, and yeah, also adults, but also it's an interesting mix of soft and hard fantasy. The Discworld series and the world is hard to pin down, but that doesn't mean it's bad or not appealing, obviously. Thank you so much for watching my non-spoilery book review on The Light Fantastic by Terry Pratchett. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this book. I will see you in the next video. Bye!